Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Gemini, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of April 2024. I hope you are well. I'm using the Pagan Otherworlds Tarot for you today. Just before we begin, if the reading resonates with you and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That is the first link in the description box. Second link in the description box is to my private community, which is the Order of the Phoenix over on the Circle platform. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost beyond the membership fee, and hang out with an extraordinary group of people. We've got some classes running over there and all sorts of things, so if that sounds interesting to you, you know what to do with that. The third link in the description box is to 3-month overviews that I've done for each of the signs. They run obviously from April to June 2024. Let me just shut that window a sec. We are moving into potentially tumultuous times, and if you want to get an idea of how that might be affecting your sign specifically, that this might be a good place to start. So with all of that out of the way, Gemini, let's have a look and see what's going on with you. Can I have 3 cards for Gemini, please? Lord, well, there's the first one. 2 of Swords in the upright. Here it is. Let's flip the camera around so you can see it. Sorry if I'm squinting it a lot. The sun's really low on the horizon, blinding me right now. It'll move in a second. Could I have current energy, please? We've got the 5 of Wands in reverse. That's very nice. And what's coming towards Gemini for April, please? We have the 9 of Pentacles. Interesting. We have the Strength card sitting at the bottom of the deck. Obviously, that's Leo in the major arcana. But it does talk to growth and personal development. And, you know, with this 9 of Pentacles here, in fact, both of these cards here seem to be speaking to some sort of internal development that is occurring. Maybe it's even the 5 of Wands, actually. But let's get some clarifiers out on the table and see what we're dealing with here. Tell me about the 2 of Swords, please, Gemini. Oh, goodness. Right, 10 of Swords, Queen of Cups. Queen of Cups is Cancer. Tell me about the 5 of Wands, please. We have the Page of Cups. He's kind of showing up sideways. I'll let him do that. And 5 of Pentacles, rather, also showing up sideways. I'll explain the sideways cards for those of you who are not familiar with why I read them like that in a second. Tell me about the 9 of Pentacles, please. All right, we have the 5 of Cups in reverse. Amazing. And we have the Page of Pentacles. I like this, Gemini. I like this very much. We've got the Queen of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck there. That's Capricorn energy. You know, this could refer to you if you have Capricorn as a major placement. But I think it's more, you know, the energetic interpretation of the Queen of Pentacles, which is to say she is about looking after yourself. I actually feel like I want to say it's about picking your battles as much as anything else. Linking it into the 5 of Wands there, but we'll get to that in a second. So we start off with this 2 of Swords over here, and the 2 of Swords is a card that I rather brashly call willful ignorance sometimes, and it's a little more brutal than I intend it to be, though I haven't really come up with a better key phrase for it yet. Because what it does is it refers to a situation where we don't know what we don't know. I mean, it's a 2, so it's internal, and it speaks to, I think very much in the pagan otherworlds, it speaks to where the mind screens off some sort of deeper truth from us, right? If I can put it like that. It's a battle of intuition and deep emotion versus certain mental constraints. You know, I'm talking about where your subconscious screens off things from your psyche, so it's outside of your awareness, which is how it comes to mean the things that you don't see, the things that you don't know, So I'm just reminded, I took my daughter to the opticians a few weeks back, quite a few weeks back now. And she was doing all of the, project the letters on the wall and stuff, and she was going through all of that. And then there was a series of numbers that were in red here, and then a series of numbers that were in green here. And she read them both fine off one eye. One eye was covered. But then with the second eye, she only read one of the lines, and I sort of looked at her and then looked at the optician, and he switched it and did it again. And because she had a slight drift on her eye, when the other one was covered, this is how the optician explained it to me, rather than dealing with blurred vision, her brain made the decision of focusing only on one thing. Like, she literally could not see that, even though it was within the field of her vision, because her brain had told her not to focus on it. That's the sort of energy that we get from the Two of Swords. It isn't that you are willfully ignoring a situation that you should be paying attention to. More, it's like there's something happening here that is trying to come to the surface, but for whatever reason, your brain is trained not to look at it. And this process is kind of, I do feel like it's a kind of pushing through process that's helping you look for it. I mean, when these things happen, generally it's for protection. Often when we talk about the shadow and the formulation of the shadow, the really important thing to remember is that right at the center of the creation of that bit of the shadow has been a positive intent. There's been something self-protective about it. And so it is here with something that seems to be trying to bubble out of your psyche. Because we've got the Ten of Swords. Now, the Ten of Swords is pain, it's hurt, it's wounding, it's betrayal. But I like the fact that it's a 10 because it represents some sort of completion, right? As we begin to remove what is obstructing, some piece of information from the rest of your psyche, whether it's, and likely this is about something deep and powerful within you that has been, at the point where your brain shrouded it off, you didn't have the capacity to be able to process fully. It's kind of bringing it up to the surface so that you can, right? So that it can be released, let go, so that, whatever shadow aspects of it can be integrated into you. And, there are lots of ways of interpreting the Queen of Cups. I mean, this could literally represent some sort of situation that has involved a water sign female in your life in some sort of way. Obviously, they would be coming from a very different place than you as an air sign. But it could be also speaking to the need to forgive yourself for whatever it is that has been occluded from your view for so long. Because there seems to be some sort of... I think it's fairly obvious that there's going to be mental growth wherever there's something uncovered that you didn't see before, right? Where you're able to make a connection that you didn't see before. But it seems somewhat of a cascade in terms of the way that it has helped you start to, because this is recent past, I'm going to get my tenses correct, because it can't help but have an effect on everything else in your life, right? When you think about things differently, when you are privy to information that you were not privy to before, about your own internal workings, once seen, that can't be unseen. It changes your perspective. And I think for a lot of you, Gemini, there's been something that you've been being really rather hard on yourself about that has been coming to the surface, and it's probably made you feel slightly uncomfortable, actually, as that's been coming to the surface, because it is time to deal with it. Now, because this is recent past, and as we move into your current energy, we've got the Five of Wands, and it's showing up in the reverse. I think that even if this thing hasn't entirely completed yet, you're pulling on all of the right strings that are kind of pulling this up to the surface, almost like a net. You're hauling it up to the surface to examine it and see what it's got inside it. Now, I just want to, before I jump too much into that, into your current energy, I just want to take a second to look at this Queen of Cups again, because she feels to me, interesting, that she's got something a little bit more to say. So we've got the Death card in reverse, which is intriguing in and of itself, and the Five of Swords. Death is Scorpio, could refer to a Scorpio. Again, we've got that water sign energy running through there. But the Death card reversed is either, an obstacle or some sort of obstruction to transformation, or it can be a resistance to transformation. And I think possibly what's coming up to the surface is feelings that are Ten of Swords in nature, so betrayal and hurt and wounding, those kind of qualities of experience. But sorry, brain just seized up there for a second. I'm back. That was really interesting, Gemini, because I completely blanked on what the fuck I was even talking about there. Now, that might just be me, but it's interesting that it should have been coming up at the point where we were talking about things that you don't see, things that your brain has screened off from you. It's just like it was there and all of a sudden it was gone. And I stared at it for nigh on a minute before I realised that actually there was probably something here that was very closely related to you that I had just suddenly done, right? Where it's been like things have almost broken the surface and then they haven't quite done it yet. And this is probably a process that's been ongoing for you for quite a long time. And you haven't been able to put any kind of label on it or understand it enough to be able to process what exactly it actually is. Because both of these cards, Death in reverse and the Five of Swords, in their own ways, they speak to a degree of self-sabotage. Now, I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that what you're doing is, actively sabotaging yourself in terms of, projects or progression or any sort of thing. We're talking about some really, really deep subconscious work that is kind of trying to rattle free here. And what it's doing is showing you where you have sabotaged yourself in the past without even realizing that you're doing it, right? So where you have resisted your own transformation without even realizing what you're doing. Because nobody really goes out of their way to actively sabotage themselves. It's so counterintuitive. It's ridiculous. And yet we are all guilty in one way or another, either to extremes or mildly, of sabotaging ourselves and our potential because of this thing going on here, which started off as protective but ultimately ended up being limiting. And I think it's the awareness of the limitation, if not the exact nature of what this is, that is starting to enter your consciousness now. This would explain why there's huge growth incoming for you, Gemini. It's not because there's, some wonderful new job opportunity on the horizon or anything like that. It's like there's something kind of almost trying to belch its way out here to be released so that you can see what it is. The Five of Swords is a card of self-sabotage. It's also a card of cognitive loops for me, right? Even sometimes a bit of cognitive dissonance, where we kick things so far out of our consciousness that we don't recognize what they are anymore. And if you bear in mind that all the tools you need to grow are in the places you don't want to look, the last place that you're going to look is somewhere that historically you kicked some aspect of yourself away. And I think this is what it's bringing up here for you. Now, that Queen of Cups then becomes even more significant because not only are you having to deal with whatever information it is about yourself that is coming up that feels uncomfortable, and it will feel uncomfortable because by definition it will, because you kicked it away from yourself at some point in the past. So not only do you have to deal with that in a loving and compassionate way, but you also have to deal with the fact that on some sort of level, this has been holding you back for a long time. There has been some sort of self-sabotage that has been at play, and that it is now time to clear. And those are two separate issues, and they both require the same kind of loving intent in the dealing with them, as much as you can possibly muster, Gemini. Now, I feel like the difficulty here for you is the fact that it pisses you off more than anything else. I don't feel like you're being utterly traumatized by something. I feel like it pisses you off because we've got swords and swords and swords, right? And that's your air. Swords are your element. Air is your element. Swords representing that within the tarot. One of the things that you pride yourself on is your ability to be able to process vast swathes of information, right? You're always looking for new information on things. But I've seen this kind of shift from Gemini, kind of looking externally for those new nuggets of information, of trying to find a way to synthesize those from an essential premise, which is that I am who I am and I know who I am, and I'm actually just looking for extra information about stuff out here, to something a little bit more contemplative, which is like, well, maybe I don't fully know who I am. Maybe there are things that are coming up that just as that line that my daughter could not see at all, like, has been thoroughly obscured from your vision. And that's why it's important to be really, really kind to yourself during this process, because it's shaking free, it's shaking loose. And when we come to your current energy, we've got the Five of Wands in reverse. And I do really like that. The Five of Wands in the upright is Saturn in Leo. And it represents conflict. It represents struggle. It represents, if you will, the battle, the culmination of which, or the completion of which, leads to the Six of Wands, which is Jupiter in Leo, and that card that speaks of success and victory and all these kind of things, right? But the Five of Wands, when it shows up in the reverse, is indicative of peace, right? A peace being achieved. And then it's quite interesting that we have these two cards appearing underneath here, because fives in the tarot represent instability, and you have three of them on the table, right? Five of Wands, Five of Cups, Five of Pentacles. Now, two of them are in the reverse, which is wonderful. One of them, I feel, is on the turn, and this is how, there are two different ways of looking at the cards that fall like this, because I am quite convinced that everything that happens at this table is part of the reading. So, if a spider runs across the table, I'm going to tell you about it. If while I'm sitting here, I see a pigeon, I might tell you about it, right? This is all part of what's happening here at the moment. I can't take a card that has fallen like this and not ascribe some sort of meaning to it. So the first meaning that I would ascribe to it is that the energy has not yet committed one way or the other. That's one way of looking at it. Or it is in the process of beginning to shift from one of its major positions to the other. So, moving from this to this, which would be the best way that this would be happening, or moving from this to this, which would be a little less ideal. I feel like what we've got going on here is a transition. The cards haven't quite committed one way or the other yet, because there isn't quite enough energy invested in both of these cards and the energy that they represent. There's a kind of external piece, dare I say, even, some sort of, what's the word, détente? Maybe a ceasefire, possibly, just a cessation of hostilities while you work out what is going on here. And, so that would be possibly an internal thing, an external thing between you and another. If this relates to some sort of water sign that you've got an issue with. But it could be an internal decision to stop fighting. Because if you haven't realised that you've been resisting something, right, because it's been shrouded off by your subconscious, we're not going to go there, not going to touch it, completely obscured from your conscious view. And then you're starting to get a sense that something is coming up. The fact that you're noticing it and you're allowing it to come rather than kicking it away, right, obviously means that you're not resisting it anymore, and it's going to slowly come to the surface and deliver the message that it has for you, right? Deliver the information about you and who you are internally, for your conscious mind to have a little pick over and kind of look to integrate. Now, the Page of Cups is a new emotional approach. It's like the rest of the cards in the cup hierarchy, talks about forgiveness and compassion, empathy. But it talks about a new way of approaching whatever is going on inside of you, right? It's not yet fully developed. It's a process. It's something that's happening slowly, as these things often do. And that probably is irritating the shit out of you as well, Gemini, right? Because you're very swift, right? Very swift mentally. You like to be able to deal with all of this stuff really quickly. But I get the sense that there's something really slow here. There's almost like a pacing of self that needs to happen, because you're dealing with different elements. Like, all three of these elements are not yours. And in fact, we don't even see any swords further down the path here. You know, all the swords are over here, but we've got pentacles, cups and wands. So we've got your behaviors, we've got your emotions, and we've got what it is that you choose to invest in, because I see the pentacles as energetic currency, right? So they become a point of investment. Your time, your care, your money, your effort, your love, all of these things, pentacles. So the Five of Pentacles in the upright speaks about loss, isolation, a feeling of abandonment, a feeling of being left out. It can speak to, penury, financial issues. But it speaks of an instability, ultimately, in the way that you have invested in yourself. And this is why I think it's so important that it's showing up here, because there's some aspect. Oh fuck! Actually, there's 5 fives on the table, 4 fives on the table. Like, all of them are here. I just completely blanked that for a second there as well. Because they all represent instability, when they show up in the upright, they're not really very ideal. We don't like that, because it means that they're operating at that frequency. But at the same time, that is giving us what we need to break free of the foundation that was created before that, right? That has its result in self-sabotage or cognitive dissonance, or cognitive loops, even that we get stuck in, where we think about things only in one way over and over again, or we feel abandoned, or we feel like we are not investing in the things that we actually need moving forwards. Once you turn these upside down, you're stabilizing them, right? So something's having to shake free inside your mind to show you where you've actually been, I think, punishing yourself for something. Like I said, this is a process of transition that you are in at the moment, and it's not moving fast. Like, whether you like it or not, it's not moving fast, because you're kind of tentatively feeling out through the different elements to give you the information that your mind, by definition, cannot. Right? Your mind is the thing that made the decision to screen this off and not pay any attention to it. So it is only through the expression of the other elements that you get to be able to kind of feel around it and see what it is before drawing it out into your conscious mind to see it. Now, when we move into what April has in store for you, we have the 9 of Pentacles in the upright, which is a really good card. We have the 5 of Cups in reverse, really good card. And we have the Page of Pentacles, which is a really good card. We also have this Queen of Pentacles here. And I feel like whatever has been coming up here with this 5 of Swords, right? And we could say even that is just thinking about things in a wonky way, right? Just as simply as that. This kind of leading to a series of realizations. Like I said, if this energy here is a realization that you've been punishing yourself for something, Maybe it's even punishing somebody else for something without even realizing that you were doing it, because these things can always play out either side. Then what's happening in April is we see you beginning to marshal your resources. I like the fact that there are so many pentacles here, because it speaks to attention. Attention is being given to whatever it is that is coming up, and it is allowing you to start. Because here's the thing, right? When I talk about your brain screening things off, it's not like a one-off situation that just happens one day. You experience something that your psyche finds a little bit traumatic. And these things often stem back from childhood, right? And your brain goes, well, not dealing with that, that's that, turned off. Because in life, in everything that we do every day, we're constantly interpreting the world in front of us by way of reference to what's happened to us in the past. This is how we get stuck in cycles with things, right? But the genius of the human mind is also the curse of the human mind, because so many of these things are relegated to the subconscious or non-conscious realm that we can be completely fucking oblivious that they're operative in the first place. And where that's the case, just like my daughter at the opticians, like, we literally cannot see that thing at all. And we don't recognize the ways in which that might have made things very difficult for us, or we might have behaved in ways that were, less than optimal, because we were reacting to what we thought was there rather than what was there, and devoid of any information to tell us why we might have reacted in that way. We just assumed that that was what reality was. I think if there's anything that we need to take forwards with us for the rest of 2024, it's it's the subtle suggestion that perhaps the world isn't what we think it is at all times. Like, none of us have all of the answers to everything. And, we're just as susceptible to the manipulations of our own minds as anybody else. Particularly when there are things that feel emotionally difficult, that have possibly caused this situation in the first place. So kind of what I'm getting at here is, because you're paying attention, because you're trying to look after yourself, right? Because you're allowing yourself to grow instead of resisting, there are things coming up that may feel, I think with that 5 of Cups there, I think that's a really interesting aspect to it. Because what we're not talking about is, realms of hideous grief rising to the surface. Oh my God, everything's so awful. I blocked out this traumatic event. It's an opportunity to look at that event with a different set of eyes. It's no longer shrouded in mystery, no longer hidden away in your psyche. You as an adult can look at it and go, all right, I can see how my psyche completely overreacted to that, to the extent that it's now, completely occluded it from my vision. But seeing it for what it is, I can let it go. Oh, that's the thing that I was going to say. It's that we come across situations that remind us of these things all the time, right? And that's when the shutters go up and we, and whatnot. There's an awful lot of energy that goes into doing that. The brain expends an awful lot of energy in making the decision about whether it's going to see a thing or whether it's not going to see a thing. And if you can reroute all of that energy that goes into shielding things off from your mind into the situations that are in front of you, investing in yourself and allowing yourself, I feel like this is a very specific message, to see the value in the experiences that you had, and the value in the experiences that you are now thinking about, it's almost like you get a shitload more done, Gemini. And that's true. That's actually true of everyone. What have we got here? King of Cups and the Emperor. I mean, those are two extremely fucking strong masculine energies there. Of not only emotional maturation, which is absolutely ideal given what we've seen coming out here, right? And again, you know, realizing that whatever it was that your subconscious completely overreacted to, or maybe it's your conscious mind completely overreacted to at the time, to the extent that your subconscious stepped in and went, no, that's too difficult, let's move that out of the way. Looking at things with an adult mind now is showing you where you can move beyond what these things, what this reaction was initially, and start taking charge in a really meaningful way. Like the card at the bottom of the deck, interestingly enough, is the Four of Swords. Now, there are various different interpretations for this card. One of them can be meditation. That might be something that really helps you during this time. But it also talks about taking a rest, taking a step back. And I feel like if this is the case, like this is your mind having a rest, right? This is your mind reclaiming some of the energy that goes into keeping all of this stuff out of your psyche. But it also speaks to healing because it follows on from the Three of Swords. And so what we've got here is, you know, this kind of unstable energy of the Five of Swords, like cracking the concrete around something that has been cleared out of your view and taking it back to a card that speaks about foundations, as all four cards do. A different kind of foundation for the mind, which is accompanied by not only emotional maturation, as we see in the King of Cups, and that active expression of emotion, which can be a whole revelation, you know, whether you are practicing that towards yourself or whether you're practicing it towards other people. It puts me in mind of the Four Agreements, which is literally around here somewhere because I pulled it out the other day. Well, it's disappeared again. You know, the only one of which that really sticks with me is not to take things personally. I think you're not taking things personally from your own psyche, but I think the extent to which you did take things personally at some sort of historic point, right, that caused the issue in the first place, which then caused your mind to shut down on it, I don't think you're taking it personally in the same way anymore. And that could well be a mental step back from things too. But you've got the Emperor here, which represents a sign of Aries, but also represents kind of getting your shit together. That's my key phrase for that card. But it's so much more than that. It's sovereignty, it's authority. I might even say it's the exercise of free will. I remember talking about this to Aquarius last year, and pointing out, like, because there was so much stuff going on in our subconscious, and that as creatures we tended to be so reactive to what we thought was happening, right, which is something generally that we've been triggered by, right? And in that moment we're back where we were like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, however long, it doesn't really matter. So we don't really see what's in front of us. We're reacting to the feeling of the moment. And what I said to Aquarius, I think it was about this time last year, was, you know, to what extent can we say that we are truly exercising our free will? If there are so many of these weird little scripts that are running in us all of the time that stop us seeing the reality of what a situation actually is. It's a very loud plane. And I think that that's really interesting because your card is the Lovers. It is the card of free will. And this Emperor here seems to, that like the combination of the King of Cups and the Emperor is putting me in mind of exactly that situation, to what extent have you really been exercising your free will and putting all of your energy where it could go when these subconscious scripts are taking so much of your energy away from you? In terms of what's happening in April, it seems like there's lights being flicked on everywhere inside of you, and there's a new resolution to really invest in yourself. Be mindful of where it is that your energy is going, because it could be that there are situations that have been demanding a lot of your attention outside of yourself. That's entirely possible. But the answer, the light switch, if you will, is definitely located within. And once that's flipped, everything starts to feel very, very different. You, Gemini, start to feel very, very different. And I think that to be fair, I think these last 6 months have been pretty rough on Gemini. For whatever reason. Like it's felt like you were struggling, trying to break out of something. To wit, then, this feels like a breakthrough month. And it's allowing you to focus on what is valuable and meaningful, which is you. Probably completes the turn of that Five of Pentacles there. I would say almost certainly completes that turn. It feels like it freshens you up on all sorts of levels. Just in time for the chaos, which is really, really good. All right, Gemini, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to go and do the extended now. So you're very welcome to join me over there. You can do that on Vimeo, or you can do it on Circle. I would be delighted to see you in either place. But if neither of those appeal to you, I really do feel like listening to what's happening inside of you and observing it without judgment, right? Let it come up and then pick over it and see if it has any utility for you moving forwards, to keep holding that so close to you. Because I think for the most part, the answer is going to be no. And I also think that there's a release that comes with that is unexpectedly freeing and unexpectedly empowering. So, yes, like I said, I'm going to leave it there. Know that I love you all very, very much. And I'll see you soon.